My sister angrily said, "We don't want you here anymore. Leave, you lazy person who works from home." My parents also agreed. I chose to get revenge on my family because I'm sick of them not appreciating me and my dog. And if they continue to act that way, I'll do what I want. My name is Kathy, and I'm 33 and unmarried. I have a place in my house where I work, and I set my own hours. I developed websites as a freelancer, which allows me to work from home with just my laptop. However, despite having a wonderful job, my parents began to meddle in my work approximately 2 years ago, one day when I was working. My parents came to visit, and as soon as they entered the house, they commented, "Mom, this house is really spacious. It feels like we could live here too." You're right, there's even a spare room. They also said that it was wasteful for Kathy to live in a house this size. Yes, let's do it alone. I made it plain that I didn't want to live with them and said, "Hold on, I don't want to live with you guys." "What are you talking about?" My father's cheeks flushed with anger when I told him that we were moving this weekend. "I just had a talk with Uncle, and he gave it to me. Don't try to defend yourself in any way because our old house is falling apart, and your mother and I are moving in. He said, you took control of this house, claiming it from your uncle, trying to make it yours. This weekend, in fact, this house was a present from my father's brother, my uncle, who always lavished me with attention. Although ownership is still in my uncle's name, he allowed me to use it anyway I choose because, in my father's opinion, our family home has severely deteriorated and needs major remodeling. My mother doesn't work, and my father doesn't make a lot of money, so we can't afford to renovate the house if we want to stay there. For this reason, they targeted the house I got from my uncle. I wasn't thrilled about it, but my parents had decided to sell their own home, and I grudgingly agreed to live with them because they had nowhere else to go and I couldn't leave them stranded. But my parents began making snarky comments as soon as they moved in. "Hey, Kathy, you're already in your 30s. I'm satisfied with my work. Why don't you consider getting married and starting a family?" At this point, my mother, who had been listening, said, "Hey, don't speak ill." "Well, my sister's marriage isn't exactly perfect, is it? But for now, I'm okay with how things are," she said. At this point, if you keep saying things like that, you'll just push any potential suitors away. Of your sister like that, in contrast to you, she is married and works for a company. I may not be married, but I'm doing well at work too. You're constantly glued to your computer. Are you making money in any dubious ways? Dubious techniques. I work honestly to make a living. There's no need to. It went like this. Be worried. How dare you respond to your mother? You're not like your sister at all. My sister does work for a company, but it's just as a temporary employee in an office setting. I don't want to minimize temporary labor, but I do earn more money than she does, despite my parents' constant comparisons. I realize that my parents' generation may not fully comprehend the concept of working from home, but it's still hard to feel undervalued all the time. One day, while I was making dinner, the doorbell unexpectedly rang. To my surprise, not my parents, who are normally indolent. Sister Sandy seems to be carrying a lot of bags. "What's going on, Kathy?" "It's been a long time. If Uncle was gifting this house to someone, it should have been me." "Hold on, you're going and starting a new life." This may seem abrupt, but I'll be living here from now on. I was shocked and blurted it out. "Today, I didn't know about this. Did your parents inform you that I got divorced?" "If so, I'll be depending on you going forward, so please disregard my surprise." Despite my efforts to protest, my parents supported Sandy when she walked upstairs and claimed an empty room for herself, and I felt helpless to stop it from then on. After her divorce, my stress level only increased. Sandy quit her work and spent her days chatting with our mother about me. "Hey, Mom, do you think this outfit is cute?" "Oh, yes. Sandy, you look so lovely, and it fits you just." "Do you agree that Kathy wouldn't wear it?" Kathy is more on the simple side, which is likely the reason she's struggling to find a job. She just stays at home and plays online mom. You can't just say things like that. They deliberately made sure I could hear their conversation while I was preparing dinner, and I wanted to reply, but I knew that would simply give in to their manipulation, so I continued to live my life without responding to anything they said. One day, a friend of mine was littered with 4 puppies, and I chose to adopt one of them. I named him Muffin, and he is a tiny black chihuahua with the cutest round eyes. Every time he sees me, he wags his tail. I've wanted a chihuahua since I was a child, but it's so difficult that it seems like it might fall off. Since working from home might be lonely, I thought Muffin could offer some much-needed company. From now on, your name is Muffin. Oh my goodness, I should have consulted my family before adopting Muffin. As expected, when I brought Muffin home, my parents and Sandy began to complain, saying, "Hey, we didn't know you were getting a dog." That's right, dogs can be smelly. I don't see why they should have any complaints, though, since this is my house and I will be paying for all of his expenses. Tolerate offensive odors. Kathy, they started moaning, so I firmly reminded them that I didn't just pick up the dog from the street. A friend donated him to me, and I'm the one who will cover all of Muffin's costs. How could you just bring a dog home without first talking to us? There shouldn't be any issues. If there are issues, leave. My house is my business. At first, they shouted loudly, their faces flushed with rage, but after a few hours, they were totally enamored with Muffin's sweetness and started showing him lots of love. Cute! Are you your mother's boy, your father's, or perhaps your sister's? Wait a second, sweetie, what happened to their anger from a moment ago? Was it all a dream? My whole family fell deeply in love with Muffin, and they were constantly swooning over him as a result of their hostility towards me diminished, and I was able to have comparatively calm days until one day, while I was out on an errand, I received a call saying, "Hello, Sandy." I immediately returned home in response to my sister's unexpected outburst, and she yelled at me in frustration. That's not what took place. Muffin made a mess of my clothing, but I'll wash them right away, and they should be fine if they smell. Besides, isn't it your fault that you left your garments on the floor? It's your lack of training, Muffin. Muffin is still a puppy if you take him, so that's enough to blame. You mentioned that you were eager to walk Muffin today, but did you really take him? I had intended to take him later, and it's all because you didn't train him properly. You should reimburse me for the clothes, as I expected, and my sister was furious when I got home. After my parents were informed, they stood next to Sandy and scowled at me. Sandy then threw the filthy garments at me and began to rant once again. It's your fault for not taking him for a walk and for leaving your clothing on the floor, so stop talking back. I'll pay for the cleaning, understand? This only occurred because you brought this dumb dog home. What will you do about it? Will you call him a dumb dog when you used to like him? Isn't it harsh to say that he had a minor mishap and that you should take responsibility for it? Why can't my family think? Beyond what is convenient for them, my parents interrupted me as I was horrified by my self-centered sister, saying, "Hey, Kathy, shouldn't you at least apologize to Sandy first?" That's right, the Muffin you brought home is the reason for all of this mayhem. Could you both please stop already? Puppies are like infants. Can't you forgive them for causing? Occasionally making terrible mistakes, this mess is all the result of this stupid dog. Kathy, you made the right decision by choosing not to get married. I doubt that you would raise a good child if you were a mother. How can you claim that if you kept the house clean and took him for regular walks, none of this would have occurred? At last, my sister arched an eyebrow and gestured towards me, saying, "I've had enough. Get out of this house, you and this dumb dog." Did you not hear me? I said, "Leave. We don't want a freeloader who works from home here." How can someone who is currently unemployed say that? Like such, and who do they believe is paying for the household bills? Yes, my parents joined in as I stood there in disbelief at my sister's ridiculous comment. Kathy, you're a jinx. Your presence simply makes things worse for us. Get out of here. In that moment of my rage, all three of them insisted that I go. Driven by a desire for vengeance, I packed my things and left the house with Muffins. I've had enough. If this is how it's going to be, just wait and see. My sister's remarks only made things more tense. If you had simply followed my instructions, none of this would have occurred. Didn't understand how serious their position was, even knowing there would be consequences, but I didn't care and let them handle it alone while keeping a sneer on my face. As anticipated, a few days after I left the house with my Muffin, my sister called in a panic. "There's a problem with the house, Kathy. Could you kindly help?" Happening with the house, and we were suddenly told that we had until the end of this month to vacate Ash. What's the problem, and why are we being told to vacate? Well, I decided to sell a house, and when I said that, Sandy seemed to freeze her voice, trembling, and barely managed to. Talk about what that means. You've decided to sell it, but you don't have the power. Well, that house was officially mine a month ago. Yes, I inherited it from my uncle, and the title is in my name. Sandy was surprised that I hadn't told her about this. You're kidding, aren't you? I was also worried, but as soon as you urged me to leave, I spoke with Uncle, who confirmed that the house is now yours, Kathy. He advised you to leave that terrible family and do whatever you want, even if Uncle gave you ownership. Whether or not my parents had been listening to my talk with Sandy on speakerphone, they started to object as soon as they realized what it could be. Stop this madness, Kathy. If we leave this place, we won't have somewhere else to go. You're right, it's unimaginable to treat your own family in this manner. I asked them quietly, "What are you talking about? You're a lovely daughter, so show your parents some respect. You've always preferred Sandy over me. Who do you think has been providing for you all for the past few years? You all had nowhere to go, so I reluctantly allowed you to move in with me with an unusually strict." Without waiting for an answer, I continued, leaving my parents stunned. They treated me and Muffin like burdens and expelled us. Wasn't it all of you attempting to achieve happiness by evicting the original residents? At my outburst, my father begged me to please put you shameless people in hell. I hung up the phone with a loud click and banned all of my family members' contacts after they saw me raise my voice. Muffin looked up at me with a frightened bark. "Help us, we're sorry." "I don't care. Figure it out on your own, you fools with that." "I apologize, Muffin, for shouting. I'm thrilled I was able to protect you now. Rescue you from the family that mistreated you later on." It appears that my parents and sister had to leave the house at the last minute, even though they made a valiant effort to stay. With my father's meager income and my mother and sister's unemployment, it's doubtful that they will be able to live a decent life. My sister is allegedly under constant pressure from my parents to find a job, and their family dynamics appear to be getting worse every day. I don't care about how they're doing, but it's obvious that their living situation has gotten worse since I left. It's a classic case of getting what they deserve. Brought upon themselves, but in the meantime, I'm living a happy life with my dog in a new flat that allows pets, working whenever I want, and having no one to complain about it. I can use my money only for my dog and myself, and I'm thrilled with my life right now. Muffin, let's go to the dog park today. Muffin appears more energetic, perhaps because that rowdy family is no longer there. I want to keep Muffin safe and have a quiet life for the rest of our lives.